Our next story is from Ukraine, and I want you to look at this video carefully. This video is the biggest story from the war-torn nation. I'm sure you are wondering why. Let me tell you. This video was shot in a village called Bilohorivka. It is in the Luhansk region. Now, Luhansk, like most of you know, is part of Donbas, which is the separatist-held disputed area. This is where Donbas is located on the map. And if you remember, Russia invaded Ukraine under the pretext of protecting Donbas. The part of Luhansk that you see in the video fell to Russia in July. And as of yesterday, Russia claimed full control of Luhansk. So what happened then? This video summarizes that. The soldiers that you see marching on the dirt road are Ukrainian soldiers. You see that white cross on the helmet? That is the sign of Ukraine's counteroffensive. So long story short, Ukraine says it has regained control of Bilohorivka. Like I mentioned, it is a small village in Luhansk, just a dot on the map, as you can see. So the gain is more symbolic, less strategic. And just to put that into perspective, Russia controls most of Donbas, also around a fifth of Ukraine. Kiev began a counter-offensive earlier this month, and so far it claims to have retaken large parts of land. Last week, that figure stood at 6,000 kilometers. The question is, how much does that mean on the ground? And does that mean much on the ground? Well, for Ukraine, the victory, especially in Luhansk, is a great head start. Kiev says it is already preparing to retake all of Luhansk. The separatists in Donbas have other plans, though. The leader of Donetsk has urged his counterpart in Luhansk to prepare for a referendum to join Russia. The phone conversation between the two was recorded and uploaded on social media.
Нам сегодня поступили обращения.
And here's what I would like to speak about. A proposal to pool the efforts of the administrations of the heads of the self-proclaimed republics, the parliamentary apparatus, for them to work out the steps that would allow us to start preparing for the referendum.
Нужно подготовить совместно.
Now, this is what will be game-changing, because if Donbas votes to join Russia, then Russia will be able to utilize its full military capability in Donbas. You see, the Russian law allows full use of military force if there is an encroachment into Russian land. And this is where things get worse for Ukraine. Donbas is not the only region that is planning to hold a referendum. Kherson and Zaporizhia, too, have joined that queue. This is the Russia-installed head of Kherson.
Dear people of Kherson, fellow countrymen, nearly every day I get calls from social organizations and regular citizens to hold a referendum on joining the Russian Federation as soon as possible. Taking all of this into consideration, the leadership of the Kherson region, its administration, has decided to prepare and hold the referendum on Kherson joining the Russian Federation.
Russian forces control 95% of Kherson, but for Kherson or Donbas to hold a referendum, they first need a nod from the Kremlin. The head of Kherson, who was appointed by Russia, has already written to the Kremlin. The question now is not whether the Kremlin will give that nod for the vote, but when it will give the nod. A former Russian president has put his weight behind the referendum. Dmitry Medvedev says the separatist regions should be allowed to join Russia. What's his logic? A vote in Donbas will correct historic wrongs. Another influential Russian lawmaker told the parliament that the referendums should be held as soon as possible.
Today we must think, and in the very near future, maybe in the next few days, maybe in the next few hours, about responding to the views of the population, which were expressed by the civic chambers in Donetsk and Luhansk. Referendums must be held, and thereby the harshest rebuffing of the Kiev junta, which has crossed all sorts of red lines, must be given.
Now, can Donbas or Kherson just hold a referendum and declare themselves to be Russian? Well, this will not be the first time Donbas is holding a vote. In 2014, the rebels held a referendum on self-rule. Votes were held in Luhansk and Donetsk. The pro-Russian separatists said 90% people voted in favor of self-rule. There was no way of verifying this. In 2014, Crimea also hurriedly held a referendum. This was right after Russia annexed the territory. On the 209th day of the Russia-Ukraine war, Western headlines point out that Crimea is now the only Ukrainian land that Russia fully controls. But one referendum, and this calculation could be thrown out of the window. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.